3, 2, 1. We're live.
All right, episode 18 of Mapping It Out with Ryan and
Kota.
There we go. Thanks for sticking around. Episode 18. We're officially adults kind of now. I don't know if I would consider an 18-year-old an actual adult. Like, I mean, technically, I guess, kind of.
It's just like you wait for that age, and then you're like, now I'm an adult, but you still
really.
you still have quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's us. There we go.
I know exactly. We're like, we're getting there. It's like we still got a while.
Just learned to drive 2 episodes ago. Yep. All right, cool. So today we are going to go over something that I feel like the topic of books trips a lot of people up because they hear so much. It's always crammed down your throat. Like, oh, you got to read. Everything's in books. You got to get educated. You got to do all this shit. And the reality is, like, books are a great education tool if you need to learn what's in the book. What's your background in books? You a big reader?
I try to be. Like, I probably knock out a book a month. So it's like,
that's good.
Yeah, it's just getting something in, you know?
Yeah.
I am a big Audible person. So, like, I look at it differently. Like, I'll just put an Audible on. And sometimes, like, I might fall asleep and then I might miss sections, but I'm constantly, like, listening compared to just reading because I get tired.
That's way faster to get through a book that way, too.
Yeah.
Personally, I like to get the actual book and read it because I'll make notes on each. Like, I'll underline passages and I'll put a little star by it if it's a super noteworthy, and then I'll dog-ear the page and write the topic. So if I'm like, oh, this is a really good book, what was this topic, this thing that I learned from it? I can go back and reference it by checking the dog-eared pages and then looking for that little asterisk and then underline passage. And that's how I kind of like can document it, because my memory is not good enough where I can like have an Audible thing and just like snatch it into my brain.
Yeah. But that's the thing with books. It's like it hits you when you read it and you're like, or listen, that was so fucking good.
Yeah.
But then, like, if you didn't write it down, you're like, fuck, what was that again? Where was that in Audible? But yeah, so I agree. I think the tangible book's super important.
Yeah. Oh, so speaking of writing things down, I actually have a list because people ask me sometimes about, like, you know, what books I'd recommend. And so I have a whole list of different topics. So at some point, just have a paper and pen handy because I'll prep you ahead of time. Like, hey, get ready to write because it's going to be like 20 books or something. And I've read a ton. Like, when I was a kid, I read a lot. Not because I like reading, because my mom paid me to read.
I was very
mercenary. I'm like, okay, cool, $20, $10 a book. Like, I'll get through it. And I didn't really give a shit about books or reading at the time, but it really helped with my vocabulary. And now I have, you know, pretty good lexicon of words that I can use, like that lexicon.
Wow, geez, right? Yeah. Ryan, what? Wait, what was that word?
Lexicon.
Okay.
It basically means an assortment of words to form like a vocabulary.
See, I need to work on my vocab. I need to get like an app or something where it's just like one word a day.
Useful, but I mean, I don't know. That was just showing off.
that was a great word to pull.
I don't normally use lexicon in a normal everyday conversation. Yeah, so I read a lot of books growing up, mainly because I just wanted to have money, and I didn't have any money, so I read. And I got like $5-10. And I didn't read for 10 years, 10, 15 years. The whole time I was in the teams, like I don't think I read anything. And then even the first couple years of entrepreneurship, like, let's say a couple, I mean the first 10 years of entrepreneurship, I didn't read anything because, to be honest, nothing I needed to learn was in books. Like, the things I needed to learn were actually out there in the real world, in the marketplace, like doing the work, learning the lessons, figuring things out. The tactical stuff I needed to learn in my business is usually not in books. You know, leadership stuff is in books, but when you have a company with just you, there's nobody to lead. There's no point in reading leadership books, you know?
Yeah.
And also too, I feel like, all these books, like, they're like tools, right? So you got to have the right tool for the right time. And if you read a book, like there's an example, this great book called Principles by Ray Dalio. It's like 600 pages. It took me like 3 months to read this motherfucker. And it was a fantastic book. But if I'd read that, 10 years ago, it would have been completely useless because it's all like really high level thinking and like strategy and how to deal with employees and problem solve and everything. And, 10 years ago, I didn't have those problems. I didn't have employees. I didn't have any of that shit. So it would have been a complete waste of 3 months of my life where I would have been much better off spending those 3 months, like figuring out how to use AI better, like figuring out Facebook ads, like figuring out how to create better content. Like that would have been way more beneficial than reading this book. That book was so high level that like it probably won't even be really useful to me until we're like, 20 to 50 million, have like, 50 to 100 employees. And then it'll be like, okay, cool. Ray, I got you. This is great shit.
Yeah.
But even now I'm like, there's something to shoot for, and it's really good, principles, but it's not like super tangible or tactical stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because to me, like when I want to get a new book, I just hit up one of my clients this morning, and you kind of guided me in that direction where we kind of talked about books being in the season you're in, right? In the beginning of entrepreneurship, you kind of just asked like maybe the more elite, like, what books do you recommend?
None.
It's very, it's kind of like, it's very broad. Like, where are you? Like, here's a great scaling book, but you're not scaling, you know? So it's very, when I ask a good book recommendation, I always ask the purpose behind it. So if they know like, oh, he's wanting to scale. Oh, content push. Oh, like how to adapt when the market zigs and zags. It's kind of like finding books like that specifically, and like the tool that you need it for that situation.
Yeah, and I think there are a few that I think are just generally useful as like, if you want to just be a good human moving through the earth, like there is some just great books. One of those I think it's called The Magic of Thinking Big. It was actually one that Andy recommended, and I read it and I was like, dude, this is phenomenal. We got one copy for everybody on our team, and actually paid everybody in our leadership team $100 to read it. And then we had like a 45-minute discussion about it afterwards, and kind of like what it meant to them, what their goals were, how it kind of shifted how they were thinking about their life. Because that book is written in, I think, the 40s or the 60s or something. So the language is a little bit dated, but the theory of it and like the basic structure of it is timeless. So, and it really captured kind of how I think about business and life. So it was cool to see when some of the other team, when they read it, that was the conversation. It's like, I wanted them to see life and business more like the way I did, because then it makes all our conversations and our decisions within the company a lot more aligned if they understand like the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing and the way that I see the company.
That's
so
smart.
It's really cool.
Keeps the alignment going.
Yeah, because the alignment's huge.
When you do have a team, you have to make sure no one's going to have that vision that you do. So it's like as a leader, you take that route. But that's super important. That's cool that you kind of gave everyone a certain book of everyone needs to read this. So we're kind of on the same page, So I like that.
Yeah, I didn't make him. I was just like, hey, this is a really impactful book for me. Here's a copy for you. I think it'll really help you in life, whether you're here or working somewhere else or whatever. But then, the leadership team was like, I'll give you $100 to read this book. I think it's that important. So that was good. Maybe, I guess now's a good time. I'll just go through the list.
Yeah.
Because it's broken down by topics as well. And could we just post this? It's not super long. We probably just post this in the description. Yeah. Okay. So if you guys aren't writing this down right now, it'll be in the link in the description. So it's broken up by topics. Number 1 is personal development. Second is team building and scaling, and then marketing and branding, and then just some good stories of entrepreneurship. So personal development, where I talk about the magic of thinking big, that's number 1. It's an absolutely incredible book. The Alchemist was really good because it's kind of a metaphor, like a whole story is a metaphor. It really like broad strokes, like big picture, kind of like life decision stuff. It requires a little bit of creative thinking to pull the lessons out, but it was, I think a really impactful, really cool book.
It was. Principles
by Ray Dalio, we talked about like really high level stuff, but man, it is dense. It is hard to get through that book. I can normally make it a goal to read like 10 pages a night. And dude, I was struggling sometimes to get like 10. It's a dense book. Mindset by Dweck is actually really good too. Just one of those basic core ones, like whether you're an entrepreneur or working for somebody or doing like anything in life, it's just a really good way to look at your life and figure out kind of what you want. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen is also like a classic. But all those are very similar in like the kind of overall big structure, big picture thinking, very useful whether you have a business or not. This last one called No Surrender by Paul Waggener, very, like this shit lights me on fire. It's one of the only books I've read several times. because it's just like, I don't get motivated by a lot of things, but the way that guy writes about just being on fucking fire for your brand, I think it's very necessary. If you're going to build a brand, especially an apparel brand now with social media the way it is and the world the way it is, you have to be on fire for your brand. And he talks about like how to do that, like the tactics of it and how you should be thinking. And it was cool because it made me feel like, okay, if this motherfucker's this level of crazy, I feel less crazy by thinking the same things. So that was really good. He's hard to find on Instagram. I think he's been kicked off Instagram like 5 or 6 times. So
is he like not nutty, but is he just, how do I explain that?
He's
just crazy,
polarizing.
Thank you. That's the word.
That's a good
See
word.
my vocab.
Right. Polarizing. Team building and scaling, Powerful by Patty Mccord. She was one of the main people at Netflix, and regardless of how you feel about Netflix and the politics, their culture and the way they structured their company was amazing. And she basically helped craft that whole thing and wrote a book about it. That book was also so good that we actually had a reading group in our team with our leadership team. We'd read a chapter every week and then have a meeting, like an hour-long meeting, and discuss like what they did and how we could pull some of those ideas and principles into our company and affect change within our company. So that was really good. Another one, I'm only halfway through this one, but it's really good so far. I want to add to the list, called Teamwork. And it's exactly about that, teamwork. I'm also halfway through one right now called Scaling Up Compensation, which I think it's not super useful in the beginning, but if you got a team of like, 10 to 20 to 50 to 100, something like that, it really goes into the structure of how you can create some of these compensation models to keep people happy. Because after a couple million, it's all about the team. The team is what's going to scale, and you can't scale the team without paying attention to the compensation model and compensating people appropriately for how they view their work and their time is worth. So it brings up a lot of concepts that I found like really valuable. Disney and I are talking about it, and we're going to try to implement some of those things because, dude, it's really good information, But if you're just starting out and you got nobody to pay, like, don't bother reading it.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah. Marketing and Branding, Contagious by Jonah Berger. Phenomenal book. More about like on the branding side. But branding is really just how you position yourself in the marketplace, which is marketing.
Is that like an older book? Because I'm curious, because marketing nowadays,
like mid, like 2015, I think.
Oh, nice.
So, but it's more along the lines of like branding, not advertising.
Yeah.
There's branding, marketing, and then advertising. And the way I look at it is like, branding is what people say about your company and how it's perceived. Market is who is actually doing the saying. And then advertising is like, so that's all like on a billboard, right? And billboard is where do you put the billboard? Who's watching the billboard? How do you segment out the actual audience that you're broadcasting that reach to? So branding and marketing are very similar, but advertising is really just reach. That's just broadcasting the signal and amplifying the signal. So advertising is different than that. So none of these are actually about advertising, because the best thing you can do for advertising is just go follow really good advertisers on Instagram and go to some of their like masterminds and stuff and learn from those guys and do that. That's the best way to learn, because advertising changes every 3 to 6 months. So by the time you have a book out, dude, it's outdated.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's why I was like, what year was that? But yeah, it makes more sense marketing versus advertising in that aspect. So that's cool.
So none of these are about advertising. Stories That Sell by Casey Hibbard is also really good. It talks about, actually, this would probably be a good one for you to read, because a lot of it's probably already what you do, which is take an idea or a brand or a person, and how do you tell the story of that person or that brand? Like, tell it in a way that it's going to resonate with the audience and pull the audience into like alignment with what that person, how they view the world, and how do you get other people to view the world the same way you do.
Who was it by?
Casey Hibbard, Stories That Sell. This next one is good. It's called The Culting of Brands by Douglas Atkin. Dude, that's an intense book. It's like, it made me think about brands very differently. A lot of the stuff I was already doing, I just didn't realize like why I was doing it, but he goes into the reasons why like all these things happen. And dude, it's really insightful book. Highly recommend that one. In fact, out of all these for marketing and branding, probably The Culting of Brands would be the number one that I'd recommend. So the practice, that's it. So the practice by Seth Godin, shipping creative work, is super useful. If you're creative, like this is another one I think would be really useful for you. It mainly deals with just the concept of like recognizing when good enough is good enough and just get it out the door. Because, as a creative, you're always like, oh, one more thing. I'm just going to change it. Oh, it's almost good. It's not ready for release yet. But the fact is, like, you have to find that apex point where it's like, okay, like the way I describe it, my 100% is never going to be done. But if I can release a 90% version that somebody else is going to view as 100% useful and valuable, that's a win. That's the point where I should ship it, whether the audience thinks that it's 100%. Because I'm never going to think it's 100%. I'm always going to think, oh, it could be a little bit better. I'm going to tweak this. And directors do that with movies all the time. They have to be like sometimes forced to be like, hey, it's a final fucking cut. You got to release this. Like, no, one more tweak, one more thing. They always do that. I think any creative battles that internally, like, oh, it's not quite done. It's not ready. Like, no, it's not about you. It's about releasing it to the audience. As long as they think it's 100%, your 100% doesn't matter because you're never going to get there. Yeah. So just ship it.
It's never finished. It just escapes. That's what they say.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So it's crazy.
That one's really good. And then the last genre that I have is Good Stories of Entrepreneurship. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight was really, really good. Like it's really well written too. Like I didn't realize what a great writer he was. Well, maybe he didn't write it, but
ghostwriter.
He was a ghostwriter. Whoever wrote it, it was really good writing. It's always nice to read a book too, where you don't just get the information, but they're telling a great story and they're telling it in a way where it's actually like fun to read. So that's a good one. No Filter by Sarah Fryer was also really good too. It's a story of Instagram and how they built that and that whole company. Dude, it was. At first, when I saw it, I'm like, oh, Instagram, what the fuck? What am I going to, like, my business is nothing like Instagram or anything. But it was very similar to Patty McCord's book, Powerful, about Netflix. There's a lot of similarities in those two books. I think Powerful is maybe a little more technical, but No Filter was also very, like, big picture stuff, which I always enjoy. So that was a great story. And the last one is Made in America by Sam Walton of Walmart, which really opened my eyes up to a ton of stuff because I didn't realize how like dedicated and driven that guy was to building that. It was also really surprising to hear, I think we talked about this on an earlier podcast, where they actually had no money because he plowed every fucking dollar he had into new stores. So they had a couple hundred stores, but they didn't actually have like hardly any money because he just kept rolling it back into growth. But then when they went public, dude, he's like, one of the wealthiest families in the world because of that.
That's like, I remember you telling me that. I can't imagine. Because you think of that person, Sam, and you're like, wow, like what incredible thing that he built. He did. But in the beginning, it wasn't just like, oh, it's crazy. That's why books are so powerful. Because you get to like, I think for me, and thanks for sharing all those. And like Ryan said, the link will be, or all the titles and authors will be down in the description. But I love all the different kinds of books where it's like an entrepreneur book that gives you advice, blah, blah, blah. But I really appreciate storytelling. I love when it's about some person's life and then you can connect it back to like, dude, you're in the same boat. Just they got there way before you because they've been doing it longer, but it's something that you can look at back and be like, okay, I'm on the right route. He gets through that same shit, So
yeah.
Cool.
There's another book I read recently. It's not on the list because it has absolutely nothing to do with, entrepreneurship, but it's called Endurance. It's about, what's his first name? Shackleton and his expedition to the Arctic Circle. And they just basically got like their asses handed them for like a year straight. They're floating around this iceberg and the iceberg collapsed. Their ship got crushed by ice and they're had to like kill their dogs and eat their dog. I actually almost stopped reading after they killed the dogs. I'm like, fuck these motherfuckers.
Sick fucks.
But then I was like, dude, yeah, unfortunately, I get it. But yeah, dude, those guys endured like probably some of the worst conditions a human can endure for as long as you can endure it. And every one of them lived. Every one of them lived. It was like, so you do have some, there is some takeaways about like, just the ability of stamina and, endurance and leadership too. Like, can you imagine like being in charge of 24, 25 dudes and they're going through all this and like, how do you lead them through that? Like, fuck, man, that's a huge challenge. Like literally life and death.
Wait, what was it called?
Endurance.
Endurance.
Yeah.
I might add that one in there too.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's definitely worth reading. It's a good story.
So I just want to share 3 books that I recently read that just kind of opened my eyes about a lot of things I just enjoyed because I need to read more, you know? But these are the ones that stood out. I think me and you've talked about E-Myth.
Yeah.
By Michael Gerber. To me, E-Myth goes about, especially if you're new to entrepreneurship, you're getting into it. You got the technician, you got the manager, and the entrepreneur. Those are 3 separate categories. And you're doing all of them by yourself in the beginning, right? So it's very hard. Majority of us were technicians. So we work in the company. We don't focus about scaling the company, which is like the entrepreneur and also the manager. But you have to understand, like, if you just get stuck in the technician role, the operator in that way, you're not going to scale. You're going to be working
you have
even
a job.
more.
You work for yourself, but you still have a job.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a great book. I enjoyed that. I read that twice. Another book by Alex Hormozy, $100 Million Offers.
Oh, yeah. I haven't read the book, but I see him on Instagram. That guy's so smart.
Man, like, didn't read the book, just audibled. I probably went through that audible because it's kind of short. He reads it. I think I've listened to it like over and like 4 times.
Wow.
It's just one of those things where I have in my car. There's so many books to also listen to, but there's so many. That's a book that I need to fucking get to take notes and tangibly highlight because he drops a lot of free nuggets and it's just probably the most valuable book that I've ever read.
Yeah.
Just
the
information he gives. And then more of a storybook in the aspect of someone's life. Relentless by Tim Grover.
Oh yeah.
Tim Grover is an amazing guy. I heard him speak a couple times. But yeah, he was a trainer with or a physical trainer for like Kobe, Michael Jordan. Like he's a great speaker. And it just kind of talks about his life and all the success, the typical success clues that he just gives and like how to be the best version of yourself. And he's intense, you know?
Yeah. What's the name of that book? Winning?
Huh?
I think, is it called Winning? Is that the name of the book?
This one's Relentless. I think Relentless is the older one. I think the newest one's Winning.
Oh, okay.
With him. Yeah, Tim Grover. I haven't read that one yet. But I just finished Relentless. And that was a great book. So
yeah, dude, he's got like talk about zero compromise. Like that guy is like his whole thing is like, hey, balance is bullshit. Get there, fucking do the work. I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
And the crazy thing is in that one, he talks about it's like Kobe and Michael Jordan were amazing basketball players. They just were different because the way the thought was just like go after it all the time. He's like, I worked with so many other athletes that were way better than Michael.
More talented.
And way talented. They just didn't have that extra gear in their brain of like, I'm going to out fucking work you.
They didn't work as hard.
No. And that's the difference, which is crazy where you just take that where you might not feel like the best right now, but you slowly keep progressing and pay attention to like the basics, right? Fall in love with the basics and just the fundamentals and keep just doing the best at that. And you'll eventually get to that point where people are you're going to be passing people left and right.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. One part I don't want to say I disagree. I have maybe a different perspective on it than Tim does is the idea of balance, right? His whole thing is like, fuck balance doesn't exist. It's not, and that you do have to have space in your life for that mode to be like, I don't give a fuck about anything else. This is 100% what I'm focused on at the moment. But I think if you look at that mentality over a different time frame, right? Like you can go hard for that for, a couple hours a day, a couple days, couple weeks, maybe even, a couple months. But like your life is going to be really fucking not fun if you just live in that space the whole time. So if you look at your life over, okay, I got to dedicate, Buds is like this. I got to dedicate 6 months of sucking ass for this result. And I don't have a girlfriend. I don't go out. I don't do anything else. This is my one focus. There's no balance. There's no like life outside of this. This is my one goal, my one focus for this long. But then after that, then you pull back and like, okay, once that's accomplished, because you can't go pedal to the metal the whole time, right? Like even a dragster, like if you want to go fast in a quarter mile, fucking dragster. There's nothing faster on the planet than a dragster, like 0 to 300 miles an hour in a quarter mile, right? So, but you can't go to the grocery store in that. You can't go on a road trip. You can't even go 2 miles with it. It needs to be rebuilt after every pass. So you're rebuilding that engine every mile, 4 times every mile. So yeah, you can have super high performance, but if that's only your goal, is to go quarter mile, yes, that's what you need to achieve that. But if you want to have like a good life, you have to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go hard in this one area, but then you got to know when to throttle off, back it down, and go hard on family time, and go hard on leisure, on vacation, or whatever. Like, so we do all inherently create our own balance. It's just that it never looks like any high performer, their balance never is 50-50.
Oh,
it's
hell
always
no.
like 80-20, 90-10.
You know, it's
like
and that's a great example. First triggered me is where growing up, I had a couple of rich friends, right? And they were like, their parents or their dad were like big deals. I would look at him like, man, look what he's doing. Like, I want that life. But he was a shitty dad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, that's how it was.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like you said, there is balance. It's like, I don't give a fuck. You could be the best, like most successful person in the world. You're a fucking asshole. Where's your balance on that?
Right.
Your kids hate you. Where's your balance on that? You know? So
it comes down to how you define success, right? Like, yeah, if you're successful in one performance metric, but your life is fucking shit and every else, like, is that success?
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends how you define success. You don't give a shit about the other stuff. Yeah, go be a dragster.
Yeah.
Do a drag run every fucking day for the rest of your life. Totally fine. If you don't fucking care about anything else, you know? But also look at, Michael Jordan's life. Like, that's what he did for a long time. And now he's retired and hanging out with his family and doing that stuff. And so if you look at the totality of life and a long enough timeline, we all find balance. It's just, it's never 50-50. You know what I mean? You'll have days and times and months and seasons where you got to go balls to the wall and pedal the metal and just fucking floor it because you have a goal to achieve. But there's also times where you maybe achieve that goal and you got to back off and be like, okay, I got this, but the rest of my life kind of suffered. I got to go and fix the rest of it in order to, create that balance over time. But yeah, most days, I mean, even day, like, go hard in the morning and work out and do this and super productive. And then I go home and, Disney and I watch an episode of TV or something and kind of reconnect and relax. Today, in that day, that's a balance, but it's 100% work in the morning, like 100% work out in the morning, 100% work while we're here, and then 100% like relaxation and connection in the evening. So the total of the day is, a balance for us, even though it's probably like, 80-20 work. Yeah. Also, one book that I think is, maybe this is the most important book. If you're looking at starting a company or starting a business or working for yourself or just kind of want to take more control of your life and like a side hustle, it's kind of a dated book now, but it's called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferris. His podcast is amazing, by the way. I learned so much from his podcast. But that book really kind of helped me figure out how to look at the outcome of what I wanted and then work backwards from the outcome. So he's talking about like, getting an Audi R8 at the time. He's talking about, okay, how much money do I need to make per month to do that? Okay, that's how much money per day. What kind of business do I need to create to, make $50, $80 a day to put towards this? And then, so you can kind of look at the goal first, chop everything up and break it down to the basics of, okay, I have 24 hours in a day. I can put, 8-9 hours into my main job, my actual income, and then I can put 4 hours into my side hustle or 2 hours or whatever it is. But it really taught me to look at situations and structure in an outcome-based mentality rather than just like, I just need to work. I need to work. Well, okay, for what? Like, what are you going for? What's the outcome you're looking for? And I think that was maybe like 2012, I think. But still, I think a really, really useful book for somebody who doesn't really know where to start or what to do. And they're kind of like, I want to do this. I want to do all these things, but I don't know what's the first thing I need to do? Honestly, that's probably the best book I would read for that. This 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferris.
Still never read it.
Really? It's good.
Yeah, dude. I've heard it's a classic.
It is, dude. Yeah. I mean, he was like one of the first guys to do like it's really the handbook for side hustle is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I think that would be my next one just to get cranked out.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, man. Just real quick before you wrap up, how do you find your books? Do you have like mentorship, like kind of groups that you talk about, like, oh, read this, or you hit up your like friends, or how does that work?
100% of them are recommendations from people that I respect and have done shit. I'm like, cool. Okay. Like I have a whole list of probably 150 books that I've only read a portion of them. I'm kind of like, dude, I would love to have nothing better to do and just sit down and read and learn. But I got a company to run. I got shit to do. I got goals in the real world I have to do. I can't be like, Warren Buffett and just sit on my stacks of money and read books all day. That would be nice, maybe goals, but no, I gotta do fucking work. So the best I can do is a consistent, 10 pages a night. I can commit to that. 80% of the time. And that gets me, I get through a lot of books that way because I never sit down and be like, I really feel like reading today. Never once have I thought like, I could really enjoy a good book right now. Never. So I was like, I got to get my mind off of work. I can't sleep. I got to get my mind off of work. I'll read for 10 pages. And then immediately that helps put me in a position where like I'm set to go to bed and I'm not thinking about work, even though it is kind of technically work. But it's just my mindset more to being open to sleep. So it really helps out. And also it just, man, I can get through a lot of books that way, just chipping away at them a little bit every day.
I catch myself being on social media more towards the end of the night because I'm just like fried from editing and stuff all day.
Oh,
It's like 9 o'clock. I'm like, just want to take a break. But then the
Well,
thing
you
is,
need
it's
that,
like, yeah, which I still do, but like making it non-negotiable is like, dude, get your fucking 5-10 pages in. Like, it's the same thing when I'm like driving. Like when I get 5 minutes of music and then, dude, listen to a podcast. Like learn some shit, just make that balance.
It's surprisingly easy. I mean, it sounds hard, but it's surprisingly easy to do once you commit to it.
Exactly.
It's like, I got to do it. Like, okay, get it done.
Yeah, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Well, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a little different, but I'm going to take a lot away from that for putting all the titles of the books in the description. So all the books we talked about will be in the description. Thanks for sharing, man, because that helps out a lot. I know a lot of people are kind of curious, like where to start, but you gave great descriptions.
Well, yeah, the only reason I know those ones are good is because I've read a bunch that didn't make the fucking list. Like, dude, some of them are like legit. It's a waste of my fucking time. Like, no way.
Yeah, have you finished the whole book and you're like, that was a waste? Or you get like 3 chapters and you're like,
some of them I just have to muscle through. I want to finish this book so I can talk shit about it because it fucking sucks.
And it didn't call me a quitter.
Yeah, there's definitely some books like that. And there's others I get halfway through. I'm like, what the fuck am I getting out of this? This is lame. And I just stop. It's literally got like a little bookmark in it, like from 3 years ago. I'm like, dude, I haven't touched it since. I'm like, you know what? Balance.
Balance.
All right. Wrapping it up.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I hope you guys got something out of this. This is fun for us to just have these conversations too. But like we said, please hit us up, DM, and let us know the questions that you have, so we can, tell you things that are more relevant to you. This is relevant to us, but we want to make sure that you guys are getting the most out of this, because ultimately this is the reason we're doing this, is for you guys. So tell us how we can help you more, because that's what we want to do.
Yeah. And just stay tuned. We got some special guests coming up on the show. You're not going to want to miss. So always looking forward to that. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you share, subscribe, and you like. And yeah, you know what to do.
All right. Perfect, man. Got it.
Shake and bake.